No problem. So here we are. We are in Yaakov. Excuse me. And the Gemara Brachot 57a, and it says, "Hanich." Again, we're in the dream concepts here. So Hanichnos Agam B'Chalom, one who enters a marsh in a dream. Naaseh Rosh Yeshiva, he will become the head of the academy. Liyar, if he enters one of forests. Naaseh Rosh Livnei Kala, he will become the head of the members of the Kala. So what's going on there? He explains that a swamp has many reeds, big and small, growing in close proximity to one another. On the other hand, a forest contains tall trees, which grow some distance from each other. Thus, entry into a swamp portends that a dreamer will become the head of an academy, in which case many people of various levels of academic accomplishment will gather to attend his lectures. Entry into a forest, however, portends that the dreamer will become the head of the Kala, teacher of the more advanced students only. The Kala was, and this is the name of the, that's what we call it, Yarche Kala, all these things. So the Kala was the review session which took place after the teacher had delivered his lecture and left. Those in the audience who were unlearned left with him, and only the serious disciples of the teacher remained. The head of the Kala would then review the teacher's lectures, explaining its many fine points to those who had not fully comprehended it. For those who are in college, that would be called the lab. After the professor finishes, you have the TA, the teaching assistant, going in and doing and reviewing it again for somebody who doesn't quite chop the lesson. So that's what the Kala was. So it's the Yarche Kala, which we like to advertise in around August time. Here is when we look at a specific topic, and we search it much more at depth, because it's just a way to start the year off. But this is what they would do. So they would have time off from their work, and they would go for the month of a Kala. That would be in between the harvest and the plowing. I believe that's what's the time period. Okay, so then Rav Papa, Rav Huna, Bered, Rav Yeshua, Chaz v'chama. So Rav Papa and Rav Huna, the son of Rav Yeshua, each saw a dream. Each had a dream. Rav Papa, the Ayel La'agma, Rav Papa, who in his dream had entered a marsh. Naaseh Rosh Yeshiva, so he indeed became the head of the academy. Rav Huna, Bered, Rav Yeshua, the Ayel Ya'ar, and Rav Huna, the son of Rav Yeshua, who entered in his dream, entered the forest. Naaseh Rosh Livnei Kala, didn't he become the head of the members of the Kala? So we see that these two dreams work. So if you dream that if you go to tonight and you see yourself in a marsh, you're entering a marsh, you'll be the head of the yeshiva. Okay? And the forest, well, then you're going to be the head of you'll be able to give a review lesson. So the Gemara says, there's those who report the incident this way. Tervahu l'agma aile. Both of them entered, both Rav Papa and Rav Huna Bered Rav Yeshua entered a marsh. Ella Rav Papa the Tale Tavla. Rav Papa, when his dream, had a bell hanging from his neck. Naaseh Rosh Yeshiva, he became the head of the academy. Why? The bell, which was making noise, was an omen that he would become the head of an academy, and his voice would be heard by the masses. Rav Huna Bered Rav Yeshua Delo Tale Tavla, but he did not have a bell. Rav Huna, the son of Rav Yeshua, did not have a bell hanging from him. Naaseh Rosh Livnei Kala. He would only have the advanced students who didn't quite understand everything. I'm not sure why they called it advanced students, if that's the case, but it's interesting. The way they describe it was the person would finish the lecture, so those who were unlearned, the Amei Haaretz, would go away with the lecturer, and the ones who were the advanced students would stick behind, so that the TA could explain what the lecturer just said. So what you're seeing, two things here. By the way, this is actually quite normal if you think about it, because the way it's set up is, if I give a lecture, so you come for the entertainment value of the lecture. come for the jokes, you come for a whole bunch of different things that are being said, but it's once the lecture's over, and I ask, are there any questions? Nobody raises their hand. Maybe one person raises their hand, but for the most part, nobody raises their hand. We all go out for dessert, and that's it. When you go home, and your spouse will ask you, so what did the rabbi say? I don't know. Or you tell them a joke, or whatever else stuck with him, or, I mean, so many things that, happens. I thought I gave a great lecture, and it's the old joke about what is Mr. Schwartz say to Mr. Schwartz? And Mr. Schwartz doesn't go to shul. Mr. Schwartz always goes to shul. The rabbi gives a speech for a half hour. So Mr. Schwartz says to Mr. Schwartz when she comes home from shul, so what the rabbi say? And she puts the half hour speech into 30 seconds. He spoke about blank. Oh, okay, fine. So that's what people do. They water our speeches down to a 30-second soundbite, and we have to know what is Mr. Schwartz going to tell Mr. Schwartz, which is why if you go to a speech from a seasoned preacher, and this would apply to all religions, they will repeat their point over and over and over again. 5 times in different ways, so that when you come out of the speech, this is the point. Right?
But you tune off.
Oh, no. Again, you have to do it nicely, but you always come back to that central point.
See, most people aren't going to remember the details, but this is what I'm talking about.
Right. So like when I was speaking about agendas, I kept coming out, and there was an agenda here. There was an agenda. So then somebody said, "What are you speaking about?" I said I gave up. At that point, I just gave up because I couldn't say agenda more than I was. But you're right. People can turn off, and that's part of the problem. People turn off. But if I tell you a lot of different stories that come to the same point, you're going to get that. So that is, again, you have to have in mind that the person listening to your speech is going to boil it down to about 30-second soundbite. And by the way, if you think about how we listen to our politicians, or how we listen to news, or how we listen to anything, it's a 10-second soundbite. Yeah. We don't even pay attention to it. YouTube is great. YouTube is fantastic. Because you can, besides this all me on YouTube, but you have a lot of stuff on YouTube. And you can see a lot of the comedians like Seth Meyers, who used to be on a Late Show now. Okay? Used to be Saturday Night Live. So he's the anti-Trump. He's been anti-Trump for a long time. And now that Trump's the president-elect, so he went against him again. Fine. I was watching it, and then it was just too much. It's the same thing over and over and over and over again. At that point, you get bored. It's no longer funny. It's just to be funny. So you don't watch it. And that's the amazing thing. That's what you're saying. When a preacher gets up and has the same message over and over and over again, you're not going to listen anymore. Now you're shutting down. What? Here we go again. Okay, he's going to get up there. That's why the previous Rav from South Bend, I don't want to keep saying his name because I wasn't here for it, but they say that he did the same thing. It would be the same thing over and over again. So, okay, they could memorize the speech. It's not what you want to do. You want to always bring in something new and something new, something new. Hopefully it wasn't true what they were saying, but I don't know, I wasn't here. But that's how you want to do it. You want to have you want to always have something fresh. And how you're going to get it across is something else. That, again, you have to know what Mr. Schwartz is going to tell Mr. Schwartz. And by the way, that whole speech came from a Reform rabbi, the Reform Rabbi Lerner from South Bend, from Bangor, Maine. She's the one who told me that's what her teacher told them, the home life teacher. You have to know what Mr. Schwartz will tell Mr. Schwartz. It has to be a 30-second soundbite. And it's true. It's very true.
Your kid when he comes home from school, did you learn anything today?
Right.
Nah.
Learn nothing. Which is why when I went to a conference one time, it was the Coalition for Jewish Advancement, a CAGE. It was a CAGE conference. I don't know what they call CAGE anymore. But it was the same thing. where the teacher said, your student, every single time before the kids leaves, he tells the students, this is what you can tell your mother or your father when they ask you what you learned. Bang. And let's practice. What's your mother going to say? Bang. He goes through the class and says, the last 5 minutes of class is worthwhile, because what happens, if you go home and your parents say, what'd you learn? And you say nothing. So they say, okay, you learned nothing. But imagine what they're going to say is, what'd you learn? Well, we learned this. Boom.
Wow.
You learned something?
That's
I made my money. Okay. And he was brilliant that way.
Just like the Dale Carnegie course, I mentioned this before, and in public speaking. So you get up and you give an introduction, you give the body of the speech, and then you give a closing. So the introduction, you tell them what you're going to tell them, then you talk about that in the body of the speech, and then you tell them what you just told them.
Right. That's what it is. You want them to come home with something. So that's what that's what this Kala guy does. Okay. So Amar Rav Ashi, so Rav Ashi said, Ana Ailid Agma. Once I dreamt I entered a marsh, Utla Tavla, and I had a bell on my neck. And I rang it noisily. She said that Rav Ashi eventually became the head of the Academy of Masa Machasya. So again, it proves that the dream is true. So Tani Kamed Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak. So the teacher of Brighton taught the following Brighton in the presence of Rav Nachman. Bar Yitzchak Hamakis Dam V'Chalom. One who lets blood in a dream is a sign that Avonotov Mechulin Lo. His sins are forgiven. So again, if you're giving blood, so if you dream that you're giving blood, so it's then well, you're not giving blood. He's letting blood. So they have the leeches on him. He puts the leeches on him because they would do that for health purposes. If they had headaches or whatever else, they put leeches on them. That would relieve the pressure. I'm guessing if that's what happens, because you're reducing the blood, so it relieves the pressure on certain places, and so you no longer have headaches. They thought that was what would get rid of all these things. So he says, if you're dreaming that, so his sins will be forgiven. Why? Why is that true? So he says the vision of redness is used by the scripture as a metaphor for sin. Thus, the letting of blood symbolizes that once redness is leaving him, which means his sins have been forgiven. Okay. Vatanya, but surely was taught otherwise in the Breita, for the Breita said that if one lets blood in a dream, Avonatav Sidorlo, his sins are arranged for him, which means that the heavenly court has taken note and recorded his sins in preparation for judging him for them. So and he says, my Sidorim wasn't mean that they ordered. So it means Sidorim Limachel. They are arranged in preparation to be forgiven. Such a bad thing. He says the heavenly court arranges and takes notes of the person's sins, so as to know, as it were, precisely what it is that would be forgiven. Okay, fine. So now again, let's go further. So Tani Debe Rav Sheshet, a teacher of Breita taught the following Breita in the presence of Rav Sheshet: Haroa Nachash B'Chalom. If one sees a snake in his dream, it's an indication that Parnashatom is umenet lo, that his livelihood is prepared for him. Great. The snake symbolizes a guaranteed livelihood, for he eats the dust of the earth, which is always available. Think about that, the beauty of that. I see a snake in my dream. Because the snake always eats dirt, and it's always available, it means I'm guaranteed of a livelihood. Okay? Nishacho, let's say he dreamt that the snake bit him. It means nikpalalo. His livelihood would be doubled for him. Harago. If on the other hand he killed the snake, the indication is avda parnasoto. Then his livelihood will be ruined. Okay, so if the snake bites him, if he sees the snake, good. If the snake bites him, it's even better. If he kills the snake, livelihood is ruined. Why? Because the snake is symbolic of eating what's on the ground. And that's plentiful. Now you're going to wipe that out. It means you have nothing left. Okay. So Amalei Rav Sheshet, upon hearing this, Rav Sheshet said to the teacher, surely in the last case, it should be that his livelihood should be doubled because you killed him, right? Since the person killed the snake, it ought to be a sign. It ought to be a sign that he prevailed in his struggle to earn a livelihood. So the Gemara relates, no, lohi, it's not so. Rav Sheshu dechaze chavye v'chameh, for Rav Sheshu, the person who seen a snake in his dream, v'chatle, and in his dream he killed it. Thus, Rav Sheshu was merely acting on his own, in his own self-interest, and trying to prescribe him a positive interpretation of his own dream. His statement, though, was not an accurate representation of the dream's standard meaning. The Gemara earlier makes it clear that although a dream may have a certain standard meaning, if one ascribes a different interpretation to it, this can influence how the dream is eventually realized. Acting on this principle, then Rav Sheshu sought to cast his dream in a more favorable light. So here he was told that if you killed the snake, your livelihood would be ruined. He killed the snake in his dream, and he says, no, it should be for good. And again, words have power. So you want to always interpret it for good. Okay. Tani Tanei Bei Rabbi Yochanan. So a teacher of the Breiter taught this Breiter in the presence of Rabbi Yochanan. Kol minei mashkin yafin l'chalom. All types of beverages are favorable when one sees himself imbibing them in a dream. Chutz minei yayin, with the exception of wine. Yesh shotehu v'tovlo. There are those who drink in a dream and it's favorable for a favorable omen for them. V'yesh shotehu v'ralo, and there are those who drink it in a dream and it is unfavorable for them. So yesh, so what does that mean? Yesh shotehu v'tovlo. The ones who drink it and it's favorable to them, Shneamar, v'yayin samach levav enosh, that the wine gladdens man's heart. So that's good. V'yeshotehu v'ralo, and there are those who drink it and it's bad for them. Shneamar tenu sheichar la'oved, v'yayin lamare nefesh. Excuse me. Give strong drink to he that is ready to perish, and wine to those of embittered souls. Okay. So it says that wine is associated with the sadness and happiness. So that since wine can be associated with the happiness and sadness, so it depends on what you're doing there. That's why it's good for some, bad for others. And then it says, Amar Le, Rav Yochanan the Tana. So Rav Yochanan retorted to the Tana, Tanei, teach the Breiter in the following explanation. Talmud Chacham Liolam Tovlo. For Talmud Chacham, for Torah scholar, the vision of him drinking wine is always good. Why? Shneamar, as it says, L'chu lachamu b'lachami v'ushtu yayim v'sachti. Come and partake of my food and drink of the drink of the wine that I mixed. So he said, the speaker invitingly offers wine to her guests. The speaker of these words is a trait of wisdom. Hence, for scholars, wine is seen in the positive light. Now we're finally on 57b. You may be near you. Amar Rav Yochanan. So Rav Yochanan said, Hishkim v'nafal pasuk l'toch piv. If one arose from sleep and a scriptural verse immediately fell into his mouth, harei nevua ketana. This is a small or a minor prophecy. He explains, a verse that comes to one's mind immediately on waking is a veiled portent of some future tidings. The statement has already appeared in the Gemara earlier. The article explains, and they ask, why is it being repeated here? So the Slach suggests that the repetition is a form of clarification. That is, since Rav Yochanan's statement originally appeared in the context of swaying the meaning of a dream by imputing an interpretation to it, it might it might have seemed as if the statement was relevant only in that context. The verse coming to mind upon waking determines the import of the dream. The repetition of the statement here, though, makes clear that the statement has broader meaning. That is, even if the person has not recently dreamed anything at all, nevertheless, the verse he thinks of upon awakening is still taking. Nevertheless, the verse he thinks of upon awakening is still to be taken seriously as an omen. So if you wake up with a verse in your mind, well, you should think about what's being said. Okay. So Tana Rabban, Shlosh and Malachim Haim. The rabbis learned the Breiter. There are three kings whose appearance in a dream has a very special meaning. Haroah David b'chalom. If one sees David, King David in a dream, Yitzapeh lechasidut. he may anticipate acquiring piety. She says piety is associated with David for the book of Psalms, which he, for the most part, authored. Revolves primarily around themes of piety, the longing of the soul of God. Okay, and so then that's number one. Shlomo, obviously, Shlomo in a dream. Yitzapel Chachma, he should anticipate acquiring wisdom, because it says that Shlomo is the wisest person of all. Achav, he says, Achav, Yid'ag min aparayno. Let him fear that he would be the target of a heavenly retribution. Achav, the nemesis of Elijah the prophet, was a wicked king who fermented idolatry among the Jewish people. He is singled out as a king who paid dearly for his sins. For according to the scripture and tradition, he was punished in both this world and the next world. He was killed by an enemy in battle, and he also lost any share he might have in the world to come. His appearance in a dream is thus used as a portent for heavenly retribution. Again, the way we've discussed this many times, and I'm using your words, that the way you would know that is David, Shlomo, or Achav is you understand it to be that. Otherwise, there's no way that we would know who these people are. They don't have pictures. Mm-hmm. And I'm guessing also in those times they didn't have any pictures, because we're dealing with hundreds, thousands of years later. So Shlosh Nevi'im Haim. There are 3 books of the prophets whose appearance in the dream has special meaning. Haro Sefer Malachim, one who sees the books of kings. Yitzapel the Gedolah. He may anticipate rising to prominence. Again, because it's kings, it would make sense. Yechezkel, if he sees the book of Ezekiel, Yitzapel Chachma, so he may anticipate acquiring wisdom. Why? The book of Ezekiel is associated with wisdom, since it opens with the account of the heavenly chariot, an esoteric and mystical glance at the structure of heavenly worlds. The secrets of this vision are of a most profound nature, and to be revealed only to a select few. And that's why I've said this many times. If you look at old Sidurim, which have, or old Machzorim, I should say, they never, we read that one in Shavuos, right? I think it was Shavuos. They never translate that first chapter.
Oh.
They just leave it in the Hebrew. Either you understand it or you don't. We translate today in most places, but I'm just saying the old Machzorim, they didn't translate it because they're afraid that people would get the wrong idea. Yeshaya, it comes from this gemara, that this concept of where does it say? It's Shlach. Okay, it's Shlach, not something. Oh no, Chagiga, from Chagiga, right? So, and the last one is Yeshaya. If you see the book of Yeshaya, Isaiah, Yitzapel Nechama. So then you should anticipate receiving consolation for a loss. Why? Because the dominant theme of Isaiah's prophecy is consolation to the Jewish people. The prophecy assures that God's wrath is not permanent, rather he'll eventually redeem them. And finally, if you see the book of Yirmiyahu, Yirmiyah, Yid'ag min aparayot, let him fear heavenly retribution for sins. Why? Jeremiah lived just before and during Nebuchadnezzar's conquest of Yerushalayim. The dominant theme of his prophecy is that the kingdom of Judah will be defeated if its people do not return to Hashem. This section of Bright is difficult, for it begins by mentioning 3 books of prophets, but it ultimately enumerates 4. In the view of this, the Gra amends the text to omit the mention of Isaiah. Fine. You know, it's not the first time you see this. And when it goes 3 things and I mentions 4. You know, when you see this also in Sifrei Musar, in the books of ethical teachings from Talmud Devorah, you see that, where it says there's 3 things, and then it goes to list 4. And I actually looked in the Hebrew, and it says 3 and 4. I mean, 3, here there's 4. So you want to know, what happened? Is it just a bad editorial mistake? and he never read it. I was taught that when I give a paper into my teacher, I have to always read it and make sure it makes sense. Everything fits. So you have to wonder why they did that. So it seems to be, besides saying I have to amend the text to be for, but it seems to be there was a style, either that or they combined things that we wouldn't think of combining. That's all you can think. And you can say it a couple of different ways. I don't want to say that, I'm not going to argue with the Gra, but you also have to say it's 3 books of the prophets. Then it goes Malachim, which, while it's in the VM, it's not really prophetical. Unlike the next 3, Yechezkel, Yeshaya, and Yirmiyah. So if anything, I would take out Malachim. I wouldn't have taken out Isaiah. But again, I'm not the Gra. So the Gra had his reasons for it, saying we should take out Isaiah. But it would just be an interesting thing.
Interesting.
Okay, so then it says Shlosh Ketuvim, Gedolim Ham. There are 3 larger books of writings that have special significance, which when beheld in dreams. Haroah Sefer Tehillim. One who uses the books of Psalms. Yitzhak Pelech Hasidut. Again, he may anticipate attaining the trait of piety. The same thing we said above with David, who wrote the majority of the books of Psalms that had to do with piety, getting close to Hashem. So also if I see the book of Psalms. Mishlei, if I see the book of Proverbs in a dream. Yitzhak Pelech Chachma, should anticipate receiving wisdom. If I see the book of Job, Yedag Mina Paroniod, I should fear heavenly retribution. Why? Because the book of Job chronicles excruciating suffering endured by Job and recounts debates between Job and his colleagues as to the meaning of these applications. So you want to, you should just be aware that this would be, by the way, in movies, is called product placement. You know the concept, right?
Yeah, I think so.
The concept is, I want to sell Coke. Coke says to me, I want you to sell me. So I have my star drinking a Coke. All right, he opens the refrigerator and they see Coke. Well, it's product placement. In modern day, that's what we would call this. So if I'm in a dream. I'm in dreamland here. And suddenly something is out of place. I see a book of Psalms. Or I see a book of, or I see again, Isaiah. I see a Sefer Yeshua. Or I see a Sefer Torah. And you could say, okay, I'm having stress dreams because I'm a Baal Kriya. I could do a lot of things. I'm having a bar mitzvah. But the thing is, when you see these things, product placement, they all mean something. That's how we're learning from here. Okay, so regardless of what I was just dreaming of, what I was just thinking of, whatever else, there's product placement. It's not such a... We always just push it away. But it must have been I was thinking this and that. No. There's something going on. And that's what the Gemara is trying to say. How much attention you'll pay to it, I don't know. But it's something what we have to think about when we watch movies and everything else. That's what it's called. Product placement. Okay, so now it says, Haroah, Megillah Esther. Let's say you saw the Megillah Esther. Neis Naasalo, a miracle will be done for him. Why? Because the book describes how the Jews were miraculously saved from Haman's. I missed one. Oh, I'm sorry. I missed. I'm sorry. Shlosh Ketuvim, Ketanim Haim. There are 3 smaller books of the writings that have special meaning in a dream. Haroah Esher Shirim B'Chalom. One who sees the song of songs in a dream. Yitzhak Pelech Hasidut. He should participate, attaining piety. Again, this is because the song allegorically represents the intense love and longing of the Jewish people feel towards Hashem. As such, it speaks piety. So then he sees, if somebody sees Kehelet, you should anticipate acquiring wisdom. Same reason, written by King Solomon, is a searching analysis of the finite, transient nature of man and his various accomplishments. The Talmud elsewhere characterizes the book as a collection of the wisdom of Solomon. Okay. And keynote, if he sees keynote, which was written by Yirmiyahu, so then Yid Agmin Paroniot, he should fear heavily retribution. And again, the same reason as all the other stories is about the destruction. And finally, I wrote Megillah Esther, if your son sees one who sees the scroll of Esther in a dream, so Naaseh Nes Lo, a miracle will be done for him, just like it was done for the Jewish people, it will be done for him. Okay, great. Shlosh Chachamim Hem, if you see 3 sages, so they will have a special meaning. Haroeh Rebbe Bachalom, if you see Rebbe, the one who put all the Mishnayos in order, if you see him in a dream, Yitzap El Chachma, you should anticipate attaining wisdom, because he put everything together. Good. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, if you see Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, Yitzap El Shirut. Oh, you see him, you should anticipate acquiring wealth, because he was a very rich man. They say, the Gemara says, that his herds were so large, he used to tithe 12,000 calves from them annually.
Oh,
It's a lot of calves to go tithing. Okay? He was also a very, it's interesting. I would have thought that they would have said, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, if you see him, then you could have had greatness. You could have had leadership. Well, that's greatness. You could have had, you have a shirut, and you could have had chachma. Because what happens? He's the one who will take over from Reverend Gamliel. And why? But if you go back to that Gemara, where is that Gemara? That's in Brachot, I believe. If you go back to that Gemara, then you'll see that the reason they picked him was because he was rich and because of his lineage. So 2 things. Yeah, so it's interesting. Okay, but you get rich out of it. Rabbi Yishmael ben Elisha, you see Rabbi Yishmael ben Elisha, Yidag Mina Parania, then you should worry about the Parania retribution. Why? Because Rabbi Yishmael ben Elisha was a Kohen Gadol who lived through the destruction of the Second Temple. He was ultimately martyred by the Romans in a particularly barbaric way. While he was yet alive, the skin of his head was flayed from his scalp. You know why, right?
it was the Roman punishment for the.
No, but why was his head flayed?
That's for the place of the tefillin.
Besides that, his daughter said,
"Oh,
he's such a beautiful man. I'd like to keep him alive." He said, "No." He says, "Well, if I can't have him alive, can I at least have his face?" He said, "No, no problem." And just took the face off.
That was the daughter of the Roman.
Yeah, the Roman, whatever it was. Yeah. The Roman, the butchers.
Yeah.
They're all the same.
Yeah.
Well, that's one thing that when it comes to Jewish history, we never care about the names. We don't care. That's why history has such a hard time aligning with us. Because Nebuchadnezzar is Nebuzaradan, and he has a couple of different names. Because we always made fun of them. And, they were butchers, so we never really paid attention to their names, and we changed them as time would go on. Avimelech is Avimelech for 100 years. Paro is Paro. We don't know who these people are. That's why when history says Paro was really Necho, no, not Necho. Paro was really Ramses, and it wasn't Ramses. They fight amongst themselves. Because we didn't say who he was. We said Paro. Leave me alone. I don't know Paro. I don't care. They're all the same to me. That's Jewish history. They're all the same. They're the same murderers. They're the same every way through. They don't change. And so we call it what they call it. They called Paro. They called Mr. President. Who cares what they called? We don't care what it is. So that's why when you're trying to line up history, it's very hard. Because we don't really have their names. And think about Achashverosh wasn't Achashverosh. It was Antixerxes or something, what do they call it? But we have no concept of what the name was. And that's what I'm saying. So that's your problem that people don't want to understand when it comes to the history. And all these names that name places, we changed the names of those places because they were named after their gods. So we didn't want to say the names of their gods, so we changed those names. So again, once even geographically, we don't know what we're talking about if you want to look today.
So that's how the higher, what do I call it, the higher historians, archaeologists, they find fault with the Torah because of that.
Correct.
Instead of understanding it from our point of view.
Right. That's for all the people who watch me in Germany and Finland, right there. But it's no, but it really is something that we have to keep in mind, that when we are talking, we're not using those names. We don't care about those names. We don't care who they are. If you look at the story of Hanukkah in the Gemara, it says the Greeks did this. Historians go nuts on that. It was the Greeks. It was Syrian Greeks. Yeah. It was because Alexander split the. Oh, he didn't split. He was murdered. So they split the game into 3 pieces. It wasn't that one. It was this. And we're looking and saying, who cares? It was Greeks. I don't care what you want to call it. Syrian Greeks, you want to call it this Greek, that Greek. I don't care. It's an irrelevant thing to me. They were all killing us. What does it mean? So this group killed us today, that group tomorrow. Okay, fine. But that's why it becomes such a loosey-goosey type thing that everybody wants to get all excited about. And I think it's amazing when you look at it, because we also don't care. I mean, remember the Gemara says, "My Chanukah." What is literally what is Chanukah? So all the Michigan people don't know how to learn Gemara. They all say, "Oh, so not even the rabbis knew what Chanukah was." Even then, asking, you're thinking, "You're a bunch of idiots." I'm sorry, you're just idiots. I can't. You can't cure stupid. I can't tell you. Rashi says right away what it is. What is this? What are we celebrating on this holiday? Are we celebrating the military victory? Are we celebrating the fact that the oil lasted for 8 days? What are we celebrating? That's what they want to know. That's what really my Hanukkah means. But people misunderstand it, and they do what they want. But then you go in the story, and it says, like I said, the Greeks did this. It doesn't go through a whole story. It doesn't say that the Greeks forbid us to have circumcision, learn Torah. It doesn't say anything like that. For all that information, you need to go to someone like Josephus. And where he got it from, maybe he got it from Apocrypha. The Rambam, I don't know where he got his information from. Did he get it from Josephus? Did he get it from Apocrypha? Did he get it from tradition? I have no idea. But as you put things together throughout the whole system here, you suddenly get a picture of what's going on. But what we all agree with is we don't know who the rulers are. We don't care about the rulers. We just call them who they are. Romans, countrymen, they're all a bunch of evil people who killed us. The Roman procurators, that's all they were. So it's like I said, when you're going through all the history and everything else we're learning, you have to remember that we weren't specific on names. And that wasn't part of our thing. And sometimes it's bad, sometimes it's good. Okay, so the Gemara continues. And it says, so there are 3 students of the sages whose appearance in the dream has special meaning. And, so he says, why are they called students of the sages? Because they never received ordination. Okay. If you saw Haroah ben Azai b'chalom, you see Ben Azai in a dream, again, he should anticipate having piety. Why? Because the Brighton Chagiga characterizes Ben Azai as a pious person who died an untimely death. The Brighton records that he was one of the 4 sages who achieved the transcendent mystical experience known as entering the Pardes. The Brighton further states that during this experience, Ben Azai gazed upon the divine presence and died as a result. Concerning his death, in this fashion, Bright cites the verse, difficult in the eyes of God is the death of his pious ones. Ben Zoma, if he sees Ben Zoma, you should anticipate acquiring wisdom, because Ben Zoma was one of the 2 most outstanding scholars of his generation. He had expert knowledge of the underlying meanings of scriptural verses And the Breita states that when he died, the entire art of biblical exegesis, as it were, died with him. By the way, both of these gentlemen died when they were 18, according to tradition. Acher, if he sees Acher, which is Elisha ben Avua, then Yid'ag min ha'paron, he should fear from heavenly retribution. What's his story? Elisha ben Avaya was a mentor of Rav Meir, turned a heretic later in his life. From that time on, he is simply known as Acher. The other one, since he broke away from the path of the Torah, it is deemed a bad omen should one perceive him in a dream. The famous story of Acher, and they actually have a book written about it as a driven leaf.
I read that.
Yeah, as a driven leaf. So it's not.
It's a novel.
It's a novel based upon this guy Elisha ben Avaya's story, where he saw. The Gemara says that he saw the father tell the son, "Go up, chase the bird away, and get the eggs from the bird." Yeah, get the eggs from the nest. And the boy, listening to his father, goes up, gets the eggs. The ladder breaks. The boy falls to his death. Rabbi Elisha ben Avaya says, "Wait a second. The Torah says, if you honor your parents, then you're going to be rewarded with long life." It further says that if you chase the bird away from the nest in order to get the eggs, so as not to show cruelty. Well, it doesn't say the reason, but it's obvious. It's either not to not show cruelty to the animal. The animal has feelings too. So then he would be rewarded with long life. So here's two things that should be rewarded with long life, and lo and behold, he dies. So it must be that there's no God.
Huh.
How Elisha ben Avua, who knew all the answers, could trip himself up on something like that? That's simple. I don't know. I'm not Elisha ben Avua. I don't know what's going on in his life. But that's what really sent him over the edge. And no matter what Rav Meir would say to try to get him back on the derech, he kept refusing. And so that was that's his story. But the guy was still brilliant. And and it's sad. It's very sad. I mean, you know the answer, right? Because the Gemara says the child went up, and the ladder was a rickety old ladder. It was a rotted ladder, and you never can rely upon a miracle to save you from these things. So you have to. Even if your father sends you, it doesn't mean that you should just go against logic and do what you need to do. Okay, so the truth is, I'm way over time. I didn't realize how late it was, so we'll have to stop here.
Yeah.